Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So Lansing's in the process of getting a new downtown music and arts venue called the Ovation. There have been many collaborators working together to make this a reality, and there have been some recent breakthroughs bringing us closer to the finish line. Here to give us an update on this exciting attraction is the founding director for the Ovation Center for Music and Arts, Mr. Dominic Cochran. Welcome back to the show, Dom.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like anything, these things take time, and there's all kinds of complications. Talk about public-private partnerships and fundraising and all those kinds of things. So
decades even sometimes.
Right. Yeah, actually, good point. You've been on a couple of times. It's been a minute since we've talked about this topic, but it seems like there's, like I said, some breakthroughs that are getting us closer to the finish line. So let's rewind the tape just a little bit and talk about how the prospect of getting a downtown concert venue began. Where did this all begin?
Yeah, so the very beginning, this is actually the long-awaited replacement for the Lansing Civic Center.
Got it.
That's why I mentioned decades. As many people know, that was demolished in 1999, so 25 years ago now. And the plan was always to replace it in two parts because that was a thriving facility. It was busy all the time. It was also almost 50 years old, which is why it was at a crossroads. They either needed to make a huge investment to modernize it, or go in a different direction, which is what they decided to do, Mayor Hollister at the time. So it was always the plan to replace it in two parts. The Lansing Center, of course, was built to capture all the convention and event business that was happening at the Civic Center. But many of us know there was also a bunch of legendary concerts that were happening there too. I mean, if you look at the concert archive, you can still see the performers that came through there, and it's really incredible.
It's before my time, so share a couple.
Like Johnny Cash, Parliament Funkadelic. I mean, it was just like the list is. I saw my first concert there, which was I was like 9 years old or something. The Romantics opened up for Adam Ant.
Right on. Okay.
So, that was my first experience with a concert, and it was amazing. You know, it was great. So, the concert archive is a really cool website. You can see all those. But and then part two was always supposed to be building a performing arts center or a concert venue dedicated. So we could expand those offerings that were happening at the Civic Center. And the issue is that, there was a financial plan for the Lansing Center component. And it was always like, well, we'll raise the money after that to do the concert venue. And it just, 2001 recession happened, all kinds of stuff happened. And it's always about where's the money going to come from, of course. So we don't have a massive philanthropic base here, like some other cities do to do like big arts and culture projects, right? So it requires a lot of effort to get something like this off the ground, and that's how long it took. So here we are. That's the real origin, and it started that long ago.
So clearly there was a groundswell of we're going to finally get this done. Who were the partners that kind of started this whole? We have a debt to pay, metaphoric. Yeah. We owe the community this center. How did that begin?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just something that it was kind of like pushing a rock up a hill. Obviously there was a couple more recessions after the 2001 one, some population loss. So at different times over that time, the conversation got serious, and then it got shuffled to the bottom because there was priorities, right?
Yep.
So the real game changer happened right around the time Mayor Shore was elected. I realized, so the Lansing Public Media Center, which is my former job, has a funding source that is 100% restricted. It's called PEG fees, and these are fees that cable companies like AT&T and Comcast pay to the cities in exchange for being able to run in the right of way that belongs to all of us.
Got it. Okay.
And so they pay a certain percentage of their revenue in the city, and it cannot go to the city's general fund. So, and it's a significant amount of money. It's around $400,000 every year, and it was coming in. And of course, we use some of it to outfit the Lansing Public Media Center with equipment.
Yep.
And to build facilities there. And at one point, we're at the same time having these conversations all along that we need this concert venue too. We need something like this because all of our people are driving to Detroit and Grand Rapids for shows all the time.
Me too.
As you know. And they're taking all the money with them when they do, because they're going out to eat and getting a hotel room and doing all that stuff. Right. So basically, I just kind of dawned on me at one point. I was like, wait a second. So we have this funding source that, future mayors and councils can't do something else with. it has to be done. State statute requires that it be used to either build facilities or purchase equipment. It can't even be used for operations of any kind of endeavor, and it has to be for public access media production purposes.
Yep.
So to me, that's dedicated arts funding, which is super rare, right? And the true kind of breakthrough was like, well, instead of letting that trickle in over time, since it is dedicated and can't do something else with it, why don't we issue some bonds to capture a bigger chunk of it right now and put that towards building something real?
Yep. So
that amount was about $8 million that the city could bond against, and that could be repaid by future PEG fees. So once the city actually had $8 million to bring to the table, that's when it got really serious, because then it attracted all the other capital, right? The state investment, federal investment, our private investment from our sponsors like MSU, FCU, who's the lead sponsor, and we have many other supporters. That's when it got serious. So that's why. So that was around 5-6 years ago when that conversation got serious. So it's taken about that long to truly get it off the ground.
Got it. Okay. And you were tapped because you were the director of the Public Media Center, and this was going to be a city endeavor. And
yeah, so it'll be a city-owned facility.
Yep.
So they will own it. We have formed a new entity called the Lansing Public Media Authority that has its own board of directors.
Got it.
I'm serving as the founding director of the facility. So it's my job to get the project built and delivered. But then at some point, we're also researching business models and operating models for these kinds of venues and determining best practices, going to conferences all over.
Right. So you did a study, wasn't
we
there?
did. We've done multiple studies, and we picked a firm that's really good. They're called AMS Planning and Research. They have a great reputation for being conservative, and they're not like the kind of firm that will just tell you what you want to hear when you hire them to do a study.
Yep.
Which is great because they've changed the project since the original concept based on what we really needed.
Okay.
So they had a real impact on what the scope of the project. So basically what we'll do is over the next 2 years, because now we're still under construction, right? We finally have broken ground and the work has begun. It's a 2-year process because we can't build in the winter in Michigan still, even it's been a warm one so far, but we have to wait till the spring to do all the real site work. So during that 2 years, we're researching all the best practices in terms of operating models, and we're going to select the one that makes the most sense. That's the most sustainable, but balanced with the other goal of wanting to provide the most diverse set of offerings for the people who are going to attend.
Right.
So the North Star is having the experience be the best it can possibly be from the very first show, right? Because I know Lansing will come out, everyone's going to give it a shot. They're going to come see 1 or 2 shows, and I'm taking the stance that we need to wow them from the beginning, right? So they'll keep coming back. So, and we also have that same hospitality mentality with the artist side too. So we're investing pretty heavily in those amenities, like in the green room. Even things like having laundry facilities are like word spreads really quickly in that touring world, right? The tour managers talk to the agents every single night and they're like, this is what was horrible about this venue. This is what was amazing about this venue. And that word spreads quickly. So we have the same perspective of wanting to wow them from the very start. So those are the things we're working on now is the design phase, which is great. It's really fun to brainstorm and look at what other venues did and find out what works and what doesn't and incorporate that into this great new asset for Lansing.
Got it. And talk about wowing people from the beginning. Are you ready to make smart financial decisions? Wagoner Financial offers a proven process for financial transformation, empowering individuals at all stages, whether you're just starting out, nearing retirement, or anywhere in between. Stop feeling unsure about your financial path. Wagoner Financial can help you undergo a financial transformation. Schedule a consultation today to discuss your individual needs and how Wagoner Financial can guide you by visiting wagoner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. So I'm excited that you're talking about customer service after the sale, getting people to be wowed as not only, a visitor, attending the show, but also for the artists that are coming through. Talk a little bit about what types of folks it sounds like the design is still in flux. We're recording this in November of 2024. So you're still tightening down the details as to what you're trying to be, because you can't be everything for all people. Talk about what kinds of crowds you're expecting, what types of, because it's arts and music.
Yeah.
What types of things is this facility expected to entertain? We're not probably going to have the Rolling Stones or U2 here, right?
Well, sometimes you can't say
depends
never.
on them.
Because sometimes bands do smaller shows and intimate venues, and what I'm learning in the industry is you just have to ask sometimes.
Right.
So like literally, we're meeting with agents right now already 2 years in advance,
Okay.
right? And talking to them about the kinds of shows that are going to happen. And when I throw some crazy ideas out there, none of them bat an eyelash. They're like, if you put the offer out, you never know. So. Stones may be a little crazy, but you never know.
But just the idea of
100%.
what our listeners can expect. What kinds of things are we going to see at this place?
So this size venue, like 90% of the time, except when we get keep in mind for opening week, I want to really set the bar high, right? So we are talking about making offers for bigger shows, like trying to get Billy Strings or Lord Huron, people who are doing arenas and major festivals to play smaller intimate show in their hometowns, right? Those are two people who are from here. So after that kind of opening few weeks and month, we are looking at probably 90% of the time will be this venue is perfect for artists that are on the way up in their career, on the upward trajectory, and also that are kind of toward the end of their career.
Sure.
Bands that still tour, that have hugely rabid fan bases that still want to see them.
Right.
And those shows are great too, right? So it's also kind of cool being in that sweet spot because it's going to be a huge diversity of age, right? This is not just a venue for MSU students. Something I've kind of heard a little bit. I just did an AMA on Reddit. Okay. Ask Me Anything session on Reddit that turned into a very robust discussion. I was getting amazing questions. It was really good. I was glad I did it. And there was a little bit of that kind of like, who's this for? Is it only going to be for this people, that people? And so what we've learned with all the research we've done is that to be successful, it's going to have to be as multi-use as possible, right? So we're going to have like modular seating that can just completely go away, and it could be a flat floor venue for like a heavy metal show. And then seated stuff can come back in for jazz or whatever else where that's appropriate, right?
Right. Yep.
It's also going to be an amazing wedding and corporate event venue as well. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful spot for that. We're doing a lot with LED panels and projection inside the venue, so it can totally transform the feel and look based on what's happening there. So I'm really excited about that. That's another thing that's going to make it sticky and have people coming back, right? When you go to two different shows and it had a completely different vibe for those two different shows, you're going to be like, what's it going to be like next time? You know what I mean? So we're kind of excited to bring that too. So that's basically where we'll be focused. That's the sweet spot, is like people that are graduating from the club scene and on their way to playing arenas, right? It's perfect for that upward trajectory. And then also some of the stuff that you see at like casinos and things like that too. A lot of classic rock and those are just as fun shows, right?
Agree. That's where my head is.
Yeah,
that's what I tend to travel for. So that's great. So just for our listeners who know the Mid-Michigan scene, we've got Gray Wall Hall just opened up, which is nice to have that kind of live concert venue. And then we've got the Wharton Center, which has been kind of took over, as the place to go see the Broadway type shows and music and the symphony and things of that nature. So how would you fit the Ovation in between those two places?
Well, it's designed to fit perfectly between those two places. So we're proud to have the support of both of those venues. Eric Olmscheid, the new executive director at the Wharton Center, has been super generous with his time and advice. We've met for lunch a few times, and he's been really helpful with that advice. And then with Gray Wall, we're communicating with them pretty frequently. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of ways we can collaborate with Gray Wall specifically because we're right down the block, right?
Yep.
First of all, the sizes are totally complementary because it's two different levels of artists that would be coming through in terms of audience draw.
What's the seating capacity for Gray Wall?
So their fire marshal capacity is like 900, but I think, I don't know what I'll just, for example, at the Ovation, the fire marshal capacity is going to be like 3,000, right? So we can fit 3,000 bodies in the building, but it would be an irresponsible thing to sell 3,000 tickets because 1,000 people aren't going to have a good view of the stage, right?
Right. Yep.
So it'll be like sellout will be like 2,000, right? Like that's how many people can actually experience the show the way we want them to. So Gray Wall is similar. I'm just not sure what that delta is. So like their fire marshal capacity is like 900, but I think their sellouts more like
400 or
something like that.
Yeah,
it's some number smaller, and that makes sense because you want people to enjoy. You don't want bodies packed every square foot. So anyway, the sizes are totally compatible. And then on one end of that spectrum of collaboration, we would just coordinate calendars, right? Just to make sure we don't have the kind of scene yet where we could have like 2 hip hop shows on the same night. We just want to make sure the genres are compatible. So collaborating on a real loose level like that, all the way to the other end of that spectrum, they could help us manage the venue. And at least be like booking shows as promoters there, because they're going to have a lot of offers and ideas out there for shows that might not fit at Gray Wall.
Right. Good point.
This room, the Ovation, is going to be open to all promoters to throw shows, including them. So they can just go ahead and book the show at the Ovation, and it could be like Gray Wall Presents.
Yep.
There's even a scenario we've talked about. It's the possibility Wharton Center is incredibly busy. Their calendar's full. They get calls all the time from stuff that just doesn't make sense or the calendar doesn't work. So you could see potential series that the Wharton Center presents at the Ovation. So all of that's on the table. We're exploring all of those options. It will be an independent and open venue. So we won't be only Live Nation or only AEG, but both, right? So they'll both be welcome to throw shows. And to me, that's the best for our community too, because that's going to make sure, number one, that'll be a super diverse set of offerings for the community. And number two, it'll be accessible for when we do have open dates and community events that want to happen, like fundraisers for nonprofits can still happen there.
Makes sense.
So it'll be financially accessible for those kinds of events.
Got it. I want to throw a shout out to a good friend of mine here at Michigan Reimagine. We tell the stories of passionate Michiganders doing great things across the state. Today's podcast sponsor takes the art of positive storytelling to a whole new level. The good people at Good Marketing work with organizations across the state that are having a positive impact on the lives of Michigan residents. They help educate communities on the importance of affordable housing, the impact of wildlife and natural resource management, the availability of workforce development and education programs. If it lifts up people and makes the community stronger, then they want to help spread that word. If your organization needs help communicating the good work that you do, stop by their website at goodmarketing.com. That's GUD marketing.com. So let's talk a little bricks and mortar, literally and metaphoric. Yeah. Where exactly is the Ovation going to be?
So 500 South Washington will be the future address. 520 South Washington is what you should plug into your GPS if you want to drive by. And you'll see that entire block of Washington Avenue is completely vacant except for one lonely brick building, and that's 520 South, right? So that building is part of the project. We're renovating that. It's 4,000 square foot plate, but it's 3 floors. So 12,000 square feet total that we are renovating right now into the new Lansing Public Media Center. So that's the heart of the operation. And to me, that's also what makes the project super unique. When I've talked to all these other venues, and a lot of concert venues like that will sit dark during the day. Or on non-concert nights. A busy week for a big venue like that is like 3 shows a week, right? So that's 4 nights when it's kind of sitting there. That's not going to be the case with the Lansing Public Media Center attached to it. We're going to have the people that are already using the media center coming in and out during the day. So it's going to really feel like a community place, right? So that work is happening right now. We expect to be able to move into that side of the building next year. So the media center will be up and running there. The Ovation offices will be there. That'll hopefully be Q3 of 2025, but that will be right in the middle of that construction, because that's going to start. The big going vertical will be like March, April of 2025.
Got it. And do you have many barriers to getting there? Last couple times we've chatted about the project, there were still hurdles to clear and funds to find and orchestration, but it sounds like you've got you're committed and have the pathway. And, while there's still research and detail of the design, it sounds like this is assured, knock on wood. How are we feeling about that?
So the construction, the budget's in place. We've hired a CFO. We're a mighty team of 2 now, not just me. We doubled the size of the team from 1 to 2.
Congratulations.
And of course we have a board of directors too. I got to thank them. It's there's so financial obstacles. We're still raising money because it can always be enhanced, right? This kind of thing with sound and lighting systems, you basically can spend whatever you want to.
Right.
Like if you call them and say, I've got 20 million to spend, they'll be like, okay, we'll spend it. But to that end, I would say that one of the huge breakthroughs we had recently is the DART Foundation has come on board with a $1.25 million grant targeted to the sound and lighting system. So, of course, we had a number in that budget before that grant came along, but it was a number that was kind of keeping me up at night. We were going to have to do a lot with a little. Yeah. And how sad would that be, right? If we, all this time that I just described, 20 years, trying to build support for this and get it built, and then we have like an okay sound system, that would be bad, right? Yep. So they agreed. Dart Foundation agreed and thought that was an appropriate gift to make. And sleeping a lot better now with that, because it's, again, that's part of my whole desire is to wow everyone from the beginning. I don't want it to be like a trajectory, like, oh, it's pretty good now, let's keep going.
It's going to get better.
It's got to open with a bang and not slow down at all. So
got it. Well, how can people follow along with the story and the process?
Yeah, so that's the other big announcement we had. We've got a new website up at ovationlansing.com, and there's tons of information on there. The new building designs, if you've seen that kind of Art Deco version of the project, that was all very preliminary project work that we had done. It doesn't look anything like that at all anymore. So go to the website and check out the new design with Albert Kahn Associates as our architecture firm. And that name might ring a bell. It's a legendary architect, Albert Kahn, who's done iconic buildings all over the world, mostly in Detroit. But that's up there. And then we also have a public fundraising launch now. And me personally, I love participating in those like crowdfunding type stuff, like, $25, $100 gifts to things I believe in like that. For projects like this, it always feels a little bit like, oh, okay, I'm going to make my $200 donation or whatever, and it's just going to go in kind of this black hole of a giant construction budget. Like, what am I actually contributing to? So we've kind of segmented these 3 really cool parts of the project that we're going to directly fund with that. So people that are even doing like $25 donations and just getting some stickers, we have swag that's attached to all of it too. It's on the website. But the public is going to help pay for 3 really cool parts. We have the giant LED screens that are going to be on the outside that'll be like coming soon. Basically the marquee, right?
Yeah, sure.
We have one on each side of the main entrance, and those are going to be really striking. And we'll have part of those slides will be thanking all of those donors, not just the MSU FCUs, but everyone, including the people that have done just $25. We want to thank them on that level. And I think it's kind of cool too, because like donor walls are great, but I think like after the 3rd time you go to a venue, you don't really look at it again. Like you just kind of walk by it, right?
Yep.
Your eyes glaze over a little bit. So we're going to be thanking people on that kind of more dynamic way that I think will be a little more eye catching. And then we'll also be projecting stuff inside too. So that'll be fun. So the LED marquees, and then this really cool Lansing, Michigan placemaking sign. And it's not like going to be exactly like it, but it's inspired by the Portland, Oregon sign. So if you're watching this, just Google Portland, Oregon sign, and it's like it's like a built steel and neon. It's not like a printed sign. It's a really cool like placemaking sign. We're going to do something that was inspired by that on the side of the building. It won't look exactly like it at all, but and then the other thing is this amazing mural from Max Sansing that we have already done. So if you look at the south side of that 520 South Washington building, we've got this awesome mural. The same artist that did a mural on the old Lansing Public Media Center that was torn down to make way for the public safety complex. That was a really sad day when we lost that mural, because it was beautiful, right? It was really inspirational to everyone that came to the media center. And we thought that was kind of a cool full circle element to bring him back now that we have a permanent home at 520 South Washington, to do a piece on that wall. And that's already up. You can check it out right now. It's pretty awesome.
Fantastic. Remind me again of the website.
Ovationlansing.com.
Fantastic. Well, all the best, man. I appreciate you coming in and giving us an update. We'll look forward to spring of 2025 and see that thing go vertical. And I hope very much that I'll be at your first show.
Awesome.
Regardless of genre, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to music.
Cool.
Well, we've been getting an update from the founding director of the Ovation Center for Music and Arts, Mr. Dom Cochran. Thanks so much for sharing the story. We really appreciate you being here. Best of luck on your next 12 months or so.
Thanks for inviting me, Chris.
Absolutely. And I'd love to give a final shout out to my loyal sponsors: Forsberg Real Estate, Wagoner Financial, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. Fantastic people worth the call. If you found this show as a one-off, please feel free to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagine on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you find your podcast. This is Chris Buck signing off for Michigan Reimagined.